Hello, brother or sister. I'm really tired today, so I think I'm going to turn off that light. But welcome back. Good to see you. Let's talk about the good and the bad.
Stick around.
I'm going to get comfortable today. I hope you don't mind. I'm exhausted. Today, I want to talk about the good and the bad. I've amassed, as usual, some notes in my free time because work has been simple, steady, easy peasy. And now, it's clear to you who has chosen to watch my channel that I consider the modern man lesser when compared to his ancestor. And if that's not clear to you already, then I'm surprised. Technological advances, while great, there's other matters at play here that determine what makes a people's, a culture better. It's not always the technological advances that determine that. Not in my opinion. But anyway, moving on. It's important to recognize the good alongside the bad of modernity. Comfort's nice. Hot water is fantastic. I love hot water. Internet, much like modernity, has good and bad. The benefits of modernity, depending on where you were born, is that you have less predators to worry about, less chance for starvation compared to the old days, maybe more security. I was speaking to my coworker about this the other night, and oftentimes he surprises me with his wisdom, recognizing things that I didn't acknowledge before. So I came to work the other night to start my shift so that he can go home. And oftentimes we'll sit behind and chat for a little while. He's a friend. And he and I are similar in some ways and very different in others. This was the 4th of July. And he was watching a patriotic American film, I wager, to celebrate the holiday. The sniper film. Sorry, my jaw is giving me some issues. And when I got in, while I was watching him watch that, I overheard him say, "God, I wish I could shoot like that." And I said something along the lines of, "I've grown to hate guns, even though I grew up around them and pretty much shot them my whole life." He turned to me and I continued, "No intimacy with anyone or anything. Who needs friends when you have internet friends? Why live in the village when you can be in the big city and get more money? Be around all the successful people. Get more. Why talk to people when you can just text? Why clash steel or bronze or stone with your enemy when you can just curl your finger from miles away over a trigger? Shoot. Shoot the lead. Done. No more intimacy. I'd rather notch my bow or throw my spear. And I know how to shoot a gun. But for me, the gun is just a tool, like a hammer or a saw. People are obsessed with them. But then again, I like swords, especially the claymore." He said, "That's human nature. It's not going to change. We started off with stone, then steel. Now we have guns. We improve," he said.
Improve?
I inquired. "Why have a family then? Why get a wife when you can have the woman of your dreams? Look how you want. Do what you want. Please you how you want. Why have children?" He got quiet for a moment and I said, "Some people prefer stone, David. Some people would rather throw the spear than curl the finger over a trigger. The improvements, some of them, have been great. Wonderful. But my question is, when do we draw the line? And I'm not saying I hate guns. I really don't. They're useful tools. They really are. They're fantastic for hunting and for defending what you own. But put it in the hands of a lesser man, a coward, scum. They can cause problems a lot more quicker and catastrophic than a man with a blade could, more often than not. Because improvements, the good and the bad, as I said. Well, he paused a moment and he said, I agree with you. But it isn't going to stop, Skylar, for you or for anyone else. Most people are going to continue going over that line because that is human nature. Well, I won't, I said. I'm content with where I stand, right below that line. But he's right, He's right. It's not going to stop. It isn't going to stop. It's going to continue. And you need to decide what you're going to do. If you're going to go up with them above the line or stay down here with me. And down here really isn't even that bad. It's not. I mean, I'm talking to you over YouTube, after all. At least we'll be buried with some dignity when the time comes. So, the old days. Let's get into the old days, the good and the bad. We'll start with the good. Number one, just some of the things I can think of, top of my head. Leadership, sphere of influence, international was null. It was all localized leadership. Chieftains, tribal leaders, shaman, druid, gothi, whatever your culture was. Laws were local and made by them, by the chiefs, sometimes by the people as a whole, the tribe as a whole, depending on what tribe you're descended from. Tribes themselves, that's an enormous benefit. Tribes themselves, more intimacy with people that you loved, trusted, considered family. Your neighbors, today, your neighbors, I don't know about you, but I don't want hardly anything to do with neighbors in a big, well, that's not necessarily true. It depends on where I am. If I'm in a big city, or God's forbid, in an apartment complex or something like that, I don't want anything to do with my neighbors because you never know what they're going to be like. And especially in the Western world these days, madness, insanity. You never know if they're going to end up being a rational person or an irrational person, or a rational person one day and then a completely irrational person the other day, like that friend of mine that I told you about that invited me into Michigan another time. You think you know somebody. Honor, discipline, values instilled, much more noble than the values of today. That's just a very, very, very small list of the good in the old days. What about the bad? The bad is bad. There was bad back then. A lot of bad. You know it was bad. Death. Fear. Sickness. Backstabbers. Depending on where you were, what tribe you were in, whomst you lived amongst, whom you lived amongst. Murder without repercussions. Crimes without repercussions. But again, that all depended on what tribe your ancestors lived in, or therefore what tribe you would have lived in, depending on who you're descended from. Conquerors around every doorstep, around every corner, north, south, east, and west, depending on where you were. No hot water. no internet, no air conditioner, no comfortable clothes most of the time. A lot of back-breaking, hard labor if you were a serf. But let's go deeper. Let's go older. Hunter-gatherers. Hunt for the food. Kill the food. Bring the food back home. Cook the food. Preserve the food. Celebrate, eat, done. There's our Cro-Magnon ancestors right there. The people that I resemble. In my face. The Western hunter-gatherers. Anatolian Neolithic farmers. Lived amongst communities. Farmed. Etc., etc. Life was terribly difficult for them. But you know what made them better than us? The smaller communities. The simplistic lifestyles. The localized law. The morality and principles and values and traditions preserved then, lost to us before monotheism and imperialism and empire came and took that natural way of life from us away. Brothers, sisters, there's good and bad in modernity and good and bad in the old days. I'm not saying that we need to go back to Unga Bunga old days completely and utterly, but I am saying that the line needs to be drawn. We have reached a level of depravity that would make Caligula blush. I'm serious. This would be a wonderland for some of the most wretched scum of those days, because it's getting bad, very bad, and it's only going to get worse. I swear, it seems like shamelessness and just filth is being praised, and even more worse, it seems like in many cases, people like you and me are being brought under fire for being proud of who we are, who we descend from. It's almost taboo to say, I'm proud to be white, I'm proud to be European. In some cases, if you say, I am a pagan, many people say,
oh, he's a white supremacist. He loves the Austrian artist. He hates every other race but his own just because he loves his race. He's a racist. He's a fascist.
You're not allowed to be proud of your ancestry or who you are, because these ignorant morons who know nothing about history and don't want to take the time to learn about history, or sometimes don't even believe history and make things up as a coping mechanism. They associate us, who want to return to the old ways and the ways that our ancestors used to be, with the colonists, the conquerors, the monotheists, the greed-driven, the lust-driven, the ones who didn't care about their culture, their people, their traditions, nature. Cut down the trees, make way for the stores, cut down the trees, cut down the ancient sacred temples, make way for the churches. No more individuality amongst the ethnicities of the world. Everyone needs to be a part of this certain cult. Even though, even before the cult, we already were the same. We already worshipped the same God. But depending on our languages that changed over time, as we drifted apart from each other, we just gave that God a different name. Lu, the Dagda, Zeus, Odin, Wodens, Rod, Perkones. The list goes on. Shiva. But it was Deus in the past, in the steppes. amongst many, many, many other names. Our religion was here much, much longer than any other that ever came. So the good and the bad, my friends, look for it in all things. In modernity, in the old days, in your day-to-day life, in people, and decide for yourself, where do you draw the line? And what is your position upon it?